Wish all the a very good morning. Today I will be explaining you English Literature chapter 7, The Seed of Truth. So all of you open your English Literature book, page number 56-57. Alright, so this story, The Seed of Truth, is written by Sudha Murthy. She has written many stories for children, and this story is taken from her book called The Magic Drum and Other Favorite Stories, which is a collection of folk tales. Alright, so this story, The Seed of Truth, is taken from The Magic Drum and Other Favorite Story, which is a folk tale collection book. So in this story, or in this chapter, we will learn about a young little boy whose name is Pingla, and he loves gardening, and what happens to him after one incident. So here starts your story. What do you think happens to the seed he plants? Long ago, the country of Gandhar was ruled by the just and good king Vidyadhar. His subjects were very happy, but as the king grew older, everyone got more and more worried. The king did not have any children who could rule the kingdom after him. Long time ago, in the country of Gandhar, there was a very good and wise king called Vidyadhar. His subjects, means all the people in his empire, were very happy by the king's behavior and how the kings treated them. But as the king was growing older, becoming older, everyone got more and more worried for him because the king did not have any children who could rule the kingdom after the king dies. The king loved gardening. He spent a lot of time taking care of his garden, planting the finest flower, fruit, trees, and vegetables. One day after he finished working in the garden, he proclaimed, "I will distribute some seeds to all the children in the kingdom. The one who grows the biggest, healthiest plant within 3 months will become the prince or the princess." Now, King Vidyadhar was very fond of gardening. He spent lots of time taking care of all the plants in his garden, planting the finest flower and flowering plants, fruit trees, and vegetables. One day, when after he was working in the garden and after finishing his work in the garden, he decided that he said in front of all the people that he will give some seeds to all the children in his kingdom. The one who grows the biggest and healthiest plant within 3 months will become the prince or princess of King Vidyadhar. The next day there was a long line of anxious parents and children outside the palace. Everyone was very, very interested and excited to get the seeds and grow the best plant. As soon as the king Vidyadhar announced that he will make one of the child in his kingdom the next prince or princess or his heir or heiress, next day there was a long line of very worried and excited parents and the children outside of the palace. Everyone was very much interested and excited to get a seed and grow the best plant. Pingla was a poor farmer's son who was among these children. Like the king, he too was fond of gardening and grew beautiful plants in his backyard. Now Pingla was also very fond of gardening, just like the king Vidyadhar, and he used to plant different types of trees in the backyard of the garden. He took the seed from the king and planted it in a pot with great care. Some weeks passed and he added water and manure, which is the fertilizer, to the pot, but the plant did not appear. The plant did not germinated. Pingla tried changing the soil. Pingla thought that there must be some problem with the soil of the plant of the pot, so he changed the soil. He he moved the plant from one pot to another, the seed to another pot, but even after 3 months, nothing appeared. Even after changing the pot, changing the pot and mud of the seed in which it was planted, still not a single plant appeared. At last, the day came when all the children had to go to the king to show the plant they had grown. The time was over, and all the children of his kingdom had to go to King Vidyadhar to show their plants which they have grown in the time of 3 months. They started walking to the palace, dressed in their best, holding beautiful plants in their hand. So each and every child with their parents went inside the palace, and they started walking towards into the palace, and they were dressed in their best dresses and holding beautiful plants in the pot in their hands. Only Pingla stood sadly. Pingla, the poor farmer's son, he stood sadly, watching them go by, watching each and every child of the kingdom passing by with beautiful plants grown in each of their pot. Pingla's father had watched his son working hard with the seed and felt sorry for him. "Why don't you go to the king with the empty pot?" he said. "At least he will know you tried your best." When Pingla's father saw him that he was getting very sad, he was becoming very sad because he was the only child whose plant didn't grew from or did not germinated from the seed. While all the other children of the kingdom, child of the kingdom, had beautiful plants in their pot. So Pingla's father said that, "No worry, why don't you go to the king with your empty pot? Because you know that you have worked very hard in order to get the seed germinated, but it did not. Still, you go to the king with the empty pot." He said, "At least he will know you tried your best." And Pingla's father said that at least the king will know that you have tried your best to germinate the seed, but it did not germinate due to some circumstances. So Pingla too wore his best dress and joined the other outside the palace, holding the empty pot in his hand and ignoring the laughter around him. So Pingla too wore his best dress and joined the other children or child outside the palace in the line or in the queue, holding the empty pot in his hand, and all the other children was laughing at him because his pot was empty. No plant was grown in the pot. No plants germinated from the seed. Now Pingla was not paying attention to their laughter, to the laughter around him, that the other child or children were laughing at him. He was totally trying to not pay attention or ignore the laughter around him. So the king arrived and began his inspection. The king came and started looking at each and every pot very carefully. The pots held flowers of different shades, and he saw that each and every pot has different shades of flowers. Beautiful and healthy the plant grew, but the king did not look happy. But the king was not at all happy to see those colorful, different shades of colorful flowers grown in each and every pot. At the end of the line stood Pingla, and when the king reached him, he stopped in surprise. At the end of the line, Pingla was standing because he was ashamed, or maybe he was not so confident because his plant did not grow. So he was standing at the end of the line, and when the king saw him at the end of the line with an empty pot, the king was very much surprised. "Child, why have you come with an empty pot? Could you not grow anything?" King Vidyadhar asked Pingla that, "Why is your pot empty? Didn't any plant germinated from your seed? Pingla looked down and said, "Forgive me, your highness. I tried my best. I gave it the best soil and manure I had, but the plant would not grow." Now Pingla apologized or said sorry and to the king and said that he tried his best. He gave the best soil and the best manure to grow the seed or seedling, but it did not grow. Now the king's face broke into a smile. As soon as he heard Pingla's word, the king started smiling. He enveloped Pingla in his arms and announced, "Here is the crown prince." Now the king became very happy. He covered Pingla, or he hugged Pingla in his arm and announced to all the people, or in his all the people in his kingdom, that he, means Pingla, will be his next crown prince. I gave everyone roasted seed. Now why the king laughed? Now you will know it, because the king knows that the king has given each and every child a roasted seed, a seed that was cooked, roasted in the fire, and a roasted seed will never germinate. The king did this on purpose to see which child or which parents are truthful to him. He gave each and every children cooked seed which will never germinate, but all the children showed their pot with germinated seed, a small plants with flowers, except for Pingla. Now the king said that I have given everyone roasted seed which would never grow, just to see which child was the most honest and would admit or accept that he or she had not been able to grow anything. Only this boy told the truth. I am sure he will rule this kingdom one day with truth and honesty. And indeed, that was what happened. When the king grew old and died, Pingla, who had learned everything from him, came to the throne, that means became the king after the death of King Vidyadhar. Pingla became the king of Gandhar and ruled Gandhar justly for many years. Means ruled Gandhar in a fair way, just like the King Vidyadhar, for many years. So this was your story. I hope all of you have liked it. In order to understand it better, you have to read the story twice or thrice on your own. Thank you, class.